the next thing I wanted to cover are abbreviations. So we have limited space on our paper, we want to maximize that space. And one of the ways that I discovered to maximize it is, it's what I call, I'm pretty proud of it, it's what I call a Rodolfo original, and it's pretty interesting. So, as I was thinking about how to take vitals, I wanted to really compress all that information, right? So you have heart rate, you have BP, you have SpO2, and what they're on, so on room air for example, you have their temperature as well. So I really wanted to compress that from that whole line to something smaller, and I came up with something that I call the Vital Signs Man. And I thought about calling him the Vitals Drawing Man, but I didn't like that abbreviation. But let's get to that. So what I first do is I draw a figure here. Okay, I put an F here. Now, an F with the circle around it is my symbol for fever. So the temperature is going to go here. I'll just use myself as Vital Signs Man for this one. So my temperature is, let's say I'm 37.0, all right? And I'm not febrile, okay? Then we go into blood pressure. So let's say my blood pressure is, I'm feeling a little bit 110/70, okay? Now, what's my heart rate? My heart rate is around, I'm a little nervous because I'm, so let's say I'm, coming in at 86. All right, that's my heart rate. And then what about my SpO2, my saturation? I'd say I'm saturating around 99%, and I'm not on any nasal cannula or supplemental oxygen, so I'm on room air. And that's my Vital Signs Man. And obviously you can draw this a lot smaller, but it's, I think, a great little method to compress all those vital signs. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is how to abbreviate the days of the week. Seems minimal, I've been doing it for years, and it tightens everything up. So it's pretty interesting. Here, we'll go through them. So Monday makes you think of the moon, and these are actually recognized abbreviations for them. They're not something I made up. I found them in a dictionary once. So that's the abbreviation for Monday. Now Tuesday, one way to remember this is think of some Spanish. So in Spanish, Tuesday is martes, mar, referring to Mars, and the reason that comes into play is because that's a symbol, Mars, and that's a shield with a spear sticking out. That's martes, that's Tuesday, and then Wednesday, if you study French or Spanish, in French it's miércoles, and in Spanish it's miércoles, and that's all referring to Mercury. So the symbol for Mercury looks a little bit like Venus' symbol, but has some horns on it. Okay, so that's Wednesday. Then Thursday refers to Thor's day, and Thursday is that symbol. That's a symbol for Thor. And then Friday, if you're thinking along the lines of the Romance languages, so Spanish viernes, you're thinking Venus, and that is what the symbol for Friday is. It's Venus' symbol. And then for Saturday, I don't have a great way to remember that one. It's just this one. It's the symbol for Saturn. And then Sunday, the sun, very self-explanatory. There we go. That's your symbol for Sunday. The other thing that I've come to do as I've been using this method and as I've been on the wards and in clinic is come up with my own personal abbreviations. So you already know one for the fever. Another one that I use is in addition to fever is J circled, and that's jaundice. Okay, and then for diarrhea, I use this symbol. You can use your imagination how I came up with these. In stools that are bloody or diarrhea that are bloody, so I draw it in, be it melena or gross hemiptysia, that's what I put. Now, what about for urinary issues, as in hematuria, I do that. Or if they're not able to urinate, I do this. Because that's crossing that up, and that kind of comes into play in how I write constipation, is that symbol. Alright, the other symbol that I use is very common, but little little nuances help me as I'm looking over my paper. So obviously increased or decreased, in very small detail, but I make it I fill the increased up and I leave the arrowhead open for decreased. It helps. It helps me personally. Also, trends are very important to keep in mind. So I'll always have little symbols for increase, you know, if I'm talking about a sodium or something, some lab value, increase, decrease. And if either of those are very exaggerated and I want to remember that the increase was exaggerated, I'll draw it out as such and just draw a double head to it to keep reminding me. Things from negative to positive, you know, just having small details where one is in a circle, one's in a box. It's little style things that help you kind of make your notes your own and help things pop out at you. The other thing that I would encourage you to do is to incorporate color into your notes. So having one of those multicolored pens, those are very valued in the hospital because you can really do a lot with them on your notes, on your handwritten notes. There are some common abbreviations, and I will include those in a list in the resources. You know, I probably don't need to go through them all right here, but AC before a meal, PC after a meal, you can explore those at your leisure in the resources section. Some medicine abbreviations are also included in that, so things such as ASA and APAP. So ASA being aspirin and APAP being acetaminophen or Tylenol. I'm very much opposed to using brand names when speaking with other medical folks. I use them with patients, of course, but I'm a staunch proponent of avoiding brand names whenever possible. One of the things I did want to touch on in terms of the review of systems area, so when you're filling your review of systems, I actually write the same thing in all of my review systems to make sure I don't miss these. And obviously, as you gather the patient story and you speak with your patient, you'll have more pertinent review systems for them. But these are some of the things that I never want to miss. I always put nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, chest pain, shortness of breath, and weight change. And that's kind of my go-to template. Everyone gets asked that when I interview them, just to make sure I don't miss anything and end up missing an important part of this patient's presentation. Then in terms of lab abbreviations, I want to go through that because I found that we're not always taught that explicitly in the pre-clerkship, for example, and we kind of learn it along the lines of the clerkship, along the way in our clerkship. So, for labs, starting off with a BMP or a basic metabolic panel. This is a very useful method to make everything more compressed and to minimize the amount of labeling that you have to do. So we know that on this side there's glucose, and on here we have sodium, followed by chloride, and then below this, one pattern that helps remember this is that there's only going to be positive ones here and there's only going to be negative ones here. So below here is your potassium, and below here is going to be your bicarb. One important thing to note when you're reading information on your EMR and you're looking for that bicarb, it's not always going to be written as such, HCCO3. This sometimes is written as CO2. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. I've seen, and I also, when I started third year, I was a little confused where the bicarb was. So make sure sometimes it can be labeled as such. Then next here is your BUN, and your creatinine is here. Now when you get the CBC, you can record that using this method, and your white count will go here, WBCs, platelets here, and then here is your hemoglobin, and here is your hematocrit. Now depending, I learned this recently, depending on where you're practicing and where you're training, different hospitals will take different weight in each of those, and I'm coming from a place that primarily looks at hemoglobin, so that's the one I focus on, but it's good to have both. And then looking into your LFTs, that's also a kind of fishbone pattern that is used. And here you'll write your calcium. Here you'll write your AST, your ALT. Your total protein goes on here. your albumin goes here, your total bilirubin is there, and your alk phos will complete this fishbone. Alright? And finally, in terms of those abbreviations, would be the coag study. So you have a little star that you'd write here, and you can do PT here, PTT here, and your INR. And those kind of little details really help maximize the space that you're using. So that's what I have for you. I hope it was helpful. Please look in the resources. There will be PDFs where you can get your own version of this. You can print them out. You can make your own, adapt it as you see fit. I really hope it's helpful for you. I enjoyed sharing it with you. Thank you.